previously approved to what's being proposed currently. So
What's that?
sharing again?
Yeah, no, that's fine.
Do you
No,
think
because-
I could- So to just go back to what was previously approved on this plan I just gave you, was the items in red overlaid with what was next to that in the proposed landscape plan. That's just black and white. The red overlay on the plan next to that is what was once approved. And you can see that it's not drastically different. There is some reduced hardscape at the back north side of the property, which is not being touched at all. And just basically a redesign of that front courtyard and a little bit more driveway added, just to give them some more space to maneuver, as well as that additional walk down below the driveway where there's some stairs and wall. And that's shown on the rendered plan here. This being the additional path. In going through the questions that, in Douglas Kahn's review, we've got, I know some coverage issues, we've talked about them, and unfortunately, I was trying to be as consistent as possible by using information that had been previously submitted to the town, and it was wrong. And so now we know, and it will get corrected, and the coverage calculations are actually, existing conditions are higher than what was previously submitted. So that could actually work in our favor, because of what we are proposing is less than what exists.
So you're not doing the walls at the back of the property?
The
stairs?
Those red, no.
Right, you're not doing...
We're not touching anything beyond that pool area.
You're not doing the steps down to the lawn, and the pool is shown as outlines previously proposed, but it's also being proposed now, too?
Yes, yes.
Okay. And then this wall along Strawberry Lane is not being constructed?
That wall along Strawberry Lane exists. I put that on there in red because I'm proposing to change it. I have proposed moving it slightly at the top part from...
Or curling it in there?
From here forward. Basically, currently, it comes in like this. I just want to straighten it out and bend it, so it just gives them a little bit more space to maneuver in the parking area. It pinches at the moment.
And then you're expanding the parking area?
Yeah, so they also have a planting bed that exists that goes right up next to the house. I'm basically going to take that out and just let the pavement run into the side of the house so that it just gives them a little bit more breathing room in that courtyard. So there would be cobble next to the house instead of a bare planting bed.
And then the wall around that, the garden area outside that is...
This is also proposed in my design. It's pushed back just about a foot where it was originally.
Okay.
So it's basically almost the same design. It's just been altered slightly and simplified. Where there were shrubs in it, now there's just lawn and gravel paths with a little bit of stone. So it's a very minimal change. But
Any comments from any of the board members?
how high is the wall?
How high is the wall?
6 feet. What the tallest permitted is 6 feet so it's an engineered wall.
Yeah, you got this fence in red along the right side here of the pool. Is that coming? Is there another fence there?
There is an
It's hard to tell.
there's an existing fence along the property line at the moment. It is hard to tell. It's drawn on the same line as the property line. What we're proposing to do is ensure, well, the client wants to change that to a solid fence. Anyway, right now it's just chain link, but they don't want to see above them, so they want a privacy fence. That will be a solid board fence.
But that's not on you.
It is.
No, the solid fence is not
It's
on.
not, it's in the proposed plan, yes.
But it's not on this plan.
It-
It's not on the plan we're looking at.
There is a fence line drawn on the property line, which is where the fence, there's a chain link fence that exists, it's right on the property line.
Right.
And it's very hard to see.
Right.
It's
They
on
just
there, but it's
mentioned
hard
the
to see.
privacy fence will be added to the chain link fence.
The chain link fence will be replaced by a privacy
Okay,
fence.
but that privacy fence is not in the proposal.
It is,
It's-
and the details are in the package.
Okay. But it's not on the plan. Was it on
It
that plan?
is.
Well,
It's just right on the
difficult to
property
read,
line.
Susan, but it's
I'm
this
sorry.
note here.
I can't see it.
I know,
Privacy
on
fence,
this
yeah.
reduced scale, but you see those little dots?
But that's the
That's-
chain link fence.
Well, it says privacy fence, so it says.
It's the location of the
Enclosure
fence
privacy.
already, it's just being switched to a different
It's
kind
just
of
changing.
fence.
Okay.
So,
Ed, you know that?
Yeah, we still have a lot of the pool coat screening issues to deal with, and the pool safety fence issues to deal with. That was part of the problem of not having a site plan that encompassed all the hardscape and those issues.
well, that wasn't on the notes.
What's that?
That's a problem?
We need a site plan that shows everything you're doing so we can approve it. Right now, some of the stuff is on a drainage plan, some of the stuff is on a landscape plan. We don't have a site plan. The site plan has to have all the improvements and then the construction details for those improvements. So the details for the fence will be there, the defect.
All on, so you, okay.
It'll be intact, won't be the same page, it's probably a page behind or page behind. But that's what we're expecting to see.
Okay, those details have been incorporated into the drawings?
There's, yes, but the construction of the front wall detail is not significant enough to explain what's going on there. For the wall that you're replacing in front of the drawing.
The stacked field stone wall?
Step field stone wall, yeah.
Just the stacked one that's, okay.
The one that's running in front of the parking area, that's gotta be more substantial to hold the driveway and cars. We can go over that.
You're gonna get us more details on that anyway. Right, going through the sections and
As long as you tell me I need to, because I didn't know that until right now.
Oh,
Because that wasn't part of the notes, and we hadn't discussed that, because there have been other issues with
Well, we haven't had a site plan to review, and that's been kind of the underlying issue of what's going on here. Without a site plan, it's very difficult to find all these issues missing in different drawings. One plan showing all the hardscapes is a site plan, showing all the tree protections, showing all the construction access, construction limits.
I think it's spelled out in the ordinance, right?
Yeah, in the ordinance.
It's what is required in the site plan. And it's to be all on one
Like I
plan.
said, there's some details in the drainage plan.
I'm,
Yeah.
Okay, so we have that. I think it's section, we talked about that. I talked about that with your engineer. We spoke to him earlier today.
Madeline?
You know what you're supposed to do with it.
I thought this, okay, this is a site plan, but it's called the drainage plan, and if it were called a site plan, this counts as a site.
Are the fence notes on that plan?
Fence notes are on this
And
page.
that's the problem.
But how,
I think it's something that can be discussed now at the planning board meeting.
As far as the wall, I think
I'm
we're
just so frustrated because I'm trying, I have so much information here, and I just can't find a way to give it to you properly.
Well, you're here.
I know.
Let me just,
I'm just-
let me close the statement. You're here for site development plan
Yeah,
approval.
yep.
We need a site development.
For an engineer that can't come to a meeting, when he's
He
the one
can
that's
come to a
got, no, he couldn't.
Okay. but,
So I can't answer all of the questions,
I
did-
and I'm trying to.
I did speak to him, and he sounded like he could get us the information, so.
So if you get the information, in the meantime, though, you're okay, or you feel you have enough information that they could go on to the ZBA at this point. So speak to Ed and Doug and Koppelman offline and work out to get the site plan that's needed. In the meantime, you make applications to the ZBA, and then if you get approved with the ZBA, then maybe next time when you come back, you'll be able to get approved from the planning board for the site.
Okay,
Okay?
okay.
Because you still have to go to the ZBA,
Yep.
okay?
So I have approval to go to the ZBA?
Yes.
And I
Take it
will
to the
talk to you
ZBA.
guys and get you the information that you need in the time that you need it.
Tell them what the deadline is.
You need
We can make
the,
by
you need
Friday,
the,
so she can be on the deadline for Monday. You need to talk to Sarah about.
you're gonna get the
requirements.
coverage information by Friday that we talked about.
And then you need to talk to Sarah about the requirements needed for ZBA.
Okay. Can you remind me of those dates? Because I heard you say them before.
Monday is the deadline.
Well, I would have,
For the ZBA,
For June.
for the June meeting. If
right,
you want to make your August meeting, the deadline's one week after that.
I'll just email Sarah.
Next and last item then is 2018-12 Daniel and Lynn Wurzel, 6 West Sunnyside Place.
Got enough people? We go outside, see if there's any more.
We took advantage of all the seats.
I see that, you chased everyone out. You can take that out, stand up.
We're almost out now.
I'm sorry?
You can take that out, stand up.
Great, good evening. My name is Brad Schwartz. I'm a lawyer with the law firm of Zarin, Steinmetz and White Plains. We represent Daniel Wurzel and Lynn Newman, the owners of 6 West Sunnyside Lane, which is about a 1.5 acre property in the 1F60 zoning district. I am joined tonight, as Ed pointed out, by a whole team here. Daniel Wurzel, the owner, is here. My colleague Caitlin Ciolino and Ken Anderson, the project architect with his team from Granoff Architects. So we're here tonight to introduce the project. This is a proposed multi-purpose addition to the Wurzel's existing residence, as well as some other site improvements. A green roof, a watercourse buffer restoration, landscaping, and some others that Ken will walk through in a couple of moments. The reason why we're making this request is that the Wurzel's basement, as I mentioned in my submission letter, is really sort of a hodgepodge of small rooms due to various dividing walls and a low ceiling of about 7 feet. So what they're seeking to accomplish is a larger room that would provide you more, standard basement type uses of storage, gathering space, recreational use. So that's what they're seeking. We are aware that the property is already over in development coverage, 104% to be exact. I just want to be crystal clear that all those improvements were installed before the Wurzels purchased the property in December of 2017. The Wurzels haven't made any improvements to expand that nonconformity that was in existence when they purchased the property. But recognizing that, we knew we needed to remove a significant amount of development coverage in order to offset the new. So we took a close look at the site plan. What we're proposing to remove is 3,414 square foot of coverage involving patios, a koi pond, and an entire shed. I've been involved in these types of projects in the past, both in Irvington and elsewhere, where you try to reduce impervious and you try to shave off a corner of a driveway, you find some random walkway or a retaining wall, some steps. That's not what we did here. We really went back and tried to remove a substantive amount of impervious to offset. And in fact, we're going to result in a net reduction of 570 square feet. So we would reduce the existing nonconformity from 104% down to 93%. We also need an FAR variance of 5.6% that Ken can walk through those numbers, but I at least wanted to make this initial presentation. I know tonight's a public hearing. With this whole team, there's no one from the public here, but I do have a letter of support from one of the residents, Jeffrey and Barbara Goodman, at 97 Fargo Lane, that I can provide to the board staff. So I'll ask Ken to walk through the various boards.
Good evening, Ken Anderson with Granoff Architects. So we worked with Daniel and Lynn on various locations to put this, and they're really honed in on there was really only one area for it to go in due to setbacks where existing structures that they wanted to keep, which are the pool, and there's also a patio area back here. But that was important to the location of this because they would very much like this space to be accessible from their back patio, which currently is all this area. Just to back up, this tan area is sort of the new of what we're proposing, and the green areas are sort of the areas that we're proposing to remove, either structures or or patios, and this is a concrete pool, which is right along the brook here. And Sunnyside Lane comes down this way. So it really became a sort of exercise of how we're going to fit this in. We studied it in various different directions and angles, and we felt that this was the best angle for many different reasons. First and foremost, it avoids, there's 3 significant sycamore trees. There are a bunch of sycamore trees, in this area. Some on most of them are property, some on other properties adjacent, but there's a clump of 3 here, and the one that's doing the worst is underneath sort of this one, and it's this one here which we are proposing to remove. It also has about a 25 to 30 degree angle on it because it's trying to get out from under the canopy of the larger tree. So we had an arborist go to the site. He looked at all the trees because there are also 5 hemlocks within there that are sizable trees, but they're all infested with disease. So we did studies sort of trying to do the minimum impact to these larger ones. I mean, there's one here that's 70 inches? It is a 70-inch caliper sycamore in the back, and this one's 48, I believe. Yeah. So we're trying to sort of, if we are going to remove one, remove the one that's sort of angling over this area and not doing well in the canopy of those, and make these healthier, if you will. Also, angling it this way gives us sort of the narrowest exposure to really the only view into this property. It's extremely heavily screened. It's almost like a wall of trees around it. You can't see, coming down Sunnyside, you can't see any of this from the street. The only place you can see is in this driveway, which is coming up from, there's a gatehouse, or there's some kind of structure on the Irvington property that looks up. I apologize if anyone's visited.
Well, Sunnyside.
Yeah.
It's the Sunnyside Estate.
Yeah, no, I understand. So we are removing this concrete pool, which is, I think, been used as a koi pond, and it's literally in the watercourse, and there's, it's sort of impeding the flow of water, and we're trying to improve this area anyway with planting afterwards. The other area we were going to remove was this shed, which is currently this shed here. It's about 500 square feet. And so that's sort of, we're also kind of on that a little bit too, just because we figured there's already a foundation there, so this will be good for the root system, or tolerant of the root system. And then there's a large patio here, which we're taking out more than half of it. Now, we understand we're in a protected view corridor. As you know, the slope is going up. There's a neighbor up here. We do have a low sloped roof, which we did a computer model. So, this is our structure right here that we're adding. And if you are higher up, it has a green roof. We haven't selected all the species yet, but there's probably going to be some assortment of sedums and succulent plants that are good with that type of situation. But the view from the neighbor is, he's looking into trees, really. And if we go up higher, if we do go up higher to where, their house can't even look, even looking down, you'll just see the green roof. We did keep the height, I'm sorry.
Is there a lot of shrubbery there now, or is that the problem?
No, this is all there
Is
now.
this all, what about the photographs around it? Those simulations, or are those the actual photographs?
No, these are all computer model. So these are all simulations, but we sort of accurately depicted where the trees are around the property based on the survey and site photography. And as Brad pointed out, he did have a discussion, Daniel did have a discussion with his uphill neighbors, the only ones who would be impacted with this, and walked them through it, and they were okay with sort of what he was doing, and I think there's a letter of support in the file now for that. Maybe I'll let Alan speak a little bit about the landscaping.
Good evening, Alan Broadbent, here with Ken Anderson. I think what you've said is right on. This is an opportunity, as I see it as a landscape architect. I'm looking at the ability to decrease the impact on the site for this proposed addition, and so the first thing that popped into my head, even in the early discussions, was green roof. Here's an opportunity for a gorgeous green roof, and here's an opportunity to reclaim the detriment that this quarry pond has been to the watercourse. It is literally in the water. The wall comes right out of the brook, and so the entire buffer is filled up with concrete. So I saw an awesome opportunity to remove that and then revegetate that hillside and create what it should be, which is a naturally vegetated hillside, both for floodplain benefit as well as for habitat creation. So from that standpoint, I saw many benefits to the project. As we look at the landscape around the structure, the proposed addition, my objective was to find a way to integrate this addition into the land that required only very minimal grading. And so I looked very carefully, painstakingly at every grade in the vicinity of the perimeter of this addition and tried to find a way to influence the architects in their design so that we could match the grades all around the structure. So the existing site patterns and stormwater patterns are maintained, and the grades that surround the rear of the structure are blended in so that impact on critical root zones is diminished as much as possible. These are two of the most beautiful sycamores, if anyone's been to the site. Tremendous trees. And so my goal in coordination with the project is to try to protect them as much as possible. There were comments in the engineer's report about providing more tree protection details, which of course all of those things would be forthcoming in a construction set. But preliminarily, from a conceptual standpoint, our goal is to do our best to mitigate any impact on those. The other opportunity to talk about is the green roof. As many of you know, green roofs have become more and more popular, and it's not just because they're trendy, because they have real substantive benefits to the environment and to those who use them. So not only are there aesthetic and benefits to the property owner, but there are also important environmental benefits. Stormwater management is one of them. So part of this application at some point will include stormwater management plan to identify how to mitigate the stormwater coming off of this new addition. And a green roof is the first line of defense in terms of decreasing runoff and decreasing peak flow rates coming down onto the structure. The plantings surrounding the building have been chosen from a native plant palette. So we have carex, we have cinnamon fern, and we have Itea virginica to cover the ground and put this addition into a natural context so that it feels at home within its surroundings and feels contextual to the site. On our landscape plan, which Ken is putting up now, you can see, as I was mentioning before, the grading. So there are so few contour lines here that a comment from the engineer was that there was no grading plan. I love that comment. There's so few contours that you can't even tell we've graded it. The other idea is that we have pockets of planting and trees surrounding the entire addition, and then the reclamation of an entire hillside down to the watercourse. So really tremendous opportunity for this site, breathing new life in with a new owner, with new vision, to care for a beautiful site in a very important part of Irvington. This structure through here seems like a lot of lines. It's quite simple. It's a sequence of paving stones with natural slabs of stone to create stairs, again along that line of keeping the grading exactly as it is today, and a low stone wall of about 30 inches tall. So very, very minimal to allow this to just dovetail right in to the grades on the site. There are gorgeous Japanese maples right in this area that have been preserved and whose root zones are not being impacted at all. And then the large sycamores, as Ken has pointed out, are here. Ken mentioned the studies. We went through many studies looking at angle, placement, size, organization. How can we fit this type of addition for these purposes onto this property in as minimally impactful way as possible? That's all that I have to share. Ken, anything else?
What's the difference between those two drawings?
What's the blow-off?
Oh, okay.
So the first one that Ken had up here was primarily dealing with the ornamental landscape surrounding the addition. The second deals more specifically with the restoration of the bank and has a section and shows the erosion protection measures in terms of core logs for stabilization, et cetera. So a little more involved
So it's more the stuff
relative.
on the side.
Exactly, yeah, so that's more to do with this, and it has some detailed notes about how we're going to sort of
The notes, okay.
do surgery on the koi pond, because you can't come in there with a wrecking ball. It has to be sort of carefully pulled apart. It's right in the water.
Any comments? And board members?
I was interested in the erosion control when you, just as you said, taking the concrete out, you're in the stream. That's gonna keep siltation from running downstream.
Yeah, great questions. It's a tricky spot. It's a sensitive spot. Naturally, silt fence and hay bales are the first line of defense, and so the sequence is very important. If you read the detailed sequence, it has to be done in a way that there's protections put up, and then the structure is dismantled and pulled off with the arm of a machine. The machine has to be staged above, and then as soon as it's dismantled, the silt fence would be relocated or additional silt fence would be added, and then fill and topsoil will be brought in lifts. So it's a surgical operation. It's a bit of a heart transplant to do that.
And further to the east, is that riprap in the bow there?
This is existing. Is that what you're referring to? Yeah, this is all existing. So the water course comes down right now. There's a header up here. It comes down through this channel, and then as it narrows because of the koi pond. At some point in the past, I'm sure it actually fanned here, but this koi pond sort of diverts the water into a narrow channel, so it actually speeds its velocity as it runs down this course. So the idea is to restore the contours back to what they would have been prior to the koi pond. So you allow for a greater expansion of floodwater through that space, and then you naturally, obviously, allow for habitat and restoration of the bank. Does that answer your question?
So to me, I've been here for a couple of years. This is by far the boldest application I've ever seen. So coverage-wise, you're currently 100% over what's allowed. So you're coming in and selling that you're going to go down a certain percentage, but you're still going to be 92% above what's allowed. Okay? And then to add to that, you want to go over on FAR by what's there. So that to me, just in the abstract, and for the blowback for other applicants, you know, there are other people here, to see something like this is pretty dramatic. And really should be thought of, not specifically about what you've done, but in general, the idea of coming in with such a bold application.
I think that was my issue too. I think stepping back from the site plan, the whole idea of, it sounds like you're adding, if I did my calculations correct, about 2,500 square feet of floor space. According to Doug's memo, you're permitted an FAR of 8,186, but he says here that he's not sure how you calculated, or what the calculation is for the existing floor area. So before we recommend you go off to the ZBA, I would like to know, and I think this board should know, what is the existing floor area on the site now, and by how much over are you going to be, according to this application? Because 2,500 square feet is larger than many houses in the village.
No, I agree. We're asking for a lot, but there's a lot over that's there already, and we're sort of saying, okay, we're going to be under in our net number for coverage, and that includes a 2,500 square foot structure. So to answer your question about the FAR, we did sort of document sort of how we got to where we did, which is, you know, including the basement area, the first floor area, the second floor area. We also cross-hatched the two-story areas, so we are aware that something over 12 feet is going to be counted twice. So, you know, we have that enumerated on the plan. So to answer your question, yeah, the allowable is 2185. The existing is 6144, and you know what we're proposing is 8644, which is I think around 5% more than allowable. Now, there's some things that we didn't include, which Han had asked us to in the memo, and obviously, thank you for reviewing the memo. We're going to answer all those questions in writing, but one of them was we didn't include the shed. So the shed is about 500 square feet more, but it's coming down, so I guess it really doesn't affect the numbers as far as the calculation is concerned.
It would come out of the existing, that's what you're saying. The
Correct.
existing should be higher.
The existing is about, instead of 6144, it's 6644.
And everything 12 feet was counted twice?
Correct.
So it's just the chimney areas that weren't highlighted, I don't know if they were included or not. Some of the two storage chimneys.
I don't believe we included that, Jim.
Yeah.
Anything grade, we included.
Anything,
The grade hatch
Right.
was
But
included.
your point is they should be included?
yeah, or it has to be double because they're 12 feet or they're included on both floors. The second floor chimneys weren't
Okay.
shaded, I don't know if the shading wasn't done or they're not included.
We'll have to,
They're small
I
numbers.
apologize, we'll
They're
check
small
the numbers.
but it's like the coverage not being shaded under the A2. It's just,
Right,
we
right.
want to get the numbers right before
Sure.
we send you off.
But it appears that was included in the coverage, that A2, the one area that wasn't shaded, the patio.
Mhm. Yes, that was a question of,
It's listed in the item.
That's what I mean, it was included, it just wasn't great.
this area is, I'm sorry, is it Doug? Yeah, Doug is talking about this area, which is actually pointing to a wall, but the area around the A2 is patio. This is all patio. So we did include that as flagstone patio, just the B area was subtracted out of it, so it was included.
Yeah,
So
just one thing that Doug didn't put in his memo that you should add is because you're in the view preservation district, you have to show that what the impact will be on from neighboring properties. Look at the
I believe he had something in there on,
No, that was on
That was
scale.
scale.
That was
I
a
missed
scale
it.
thing.
View
The
preservation.
view preservation is how it will affect the view of the Hudson from neighboring properties.
Basically, looking at the views.
And
oh,
then-
I see, the reverse of it, sort of like,
Well, the reverse is a different thing. You're looking at if somebody in neighboring property, how is their view of the Hudson
Is it
affected by
oh,
that?
I see, yeah,
So
that's,
just
that,
put in something,
yes,
maybe some
we can do a
pictures.
sectional
Yeah.
cut and a picture of.
It has to be from neighboring properties or adjacent rights of way.
Yeah, right.
There
Just
is
take a look.
no property with a view of.
Yeah, probably not, but
Yeah.
But it still has to be,
Yeah, we have
it
to prove-
has to
we
be
have to-
documented.
We have to prove it out.
be documented because you're in the view preservation district.
And then also, as Mary Ann and Doug were saying too, is also what's the FAR and the coverage factor on the houses and the lots surrounding this particular house? I mean, how does this proposal fit into the context and character of the existing homes in the area too? I mean, as I said, because it's substantial, again, you're talking about 2,500 square feet. So that's, it's larger
Are you
than my
ask-
house, it's larger than just about any house in my neighborhood in the village. So, I mean, how does this contextually fit in? I mean, it's, again, you're at the end of the street there, but you have Sunnyside, which is on the National Register of Historic Places.
Fully
across the
understand,
street.
yeah.
So, I think it's important to show the context.
Are you asking that we should calculate the FAR for adjacent properties or approximate?
I think so, because.
I don't know how I can, I'll try, yeah.
We'll help you with that.
Okay.
We'll give you how we usually do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
people do that regularly.
Okay,
in
okay.
applications.
The coverage, not only the coverage, these are the FAR, because the FAR is being increased substantially here too.
If anybody's 100% over in coverage,
Understand.
only you are over 100%.
A micro-regional study of
Yeah.
what's happening with that.
You'd have more people in here on the next one.
Well, I just don't know how this board gets around this. I mean, because this board's responsible for not just this project, but this type of project. This approach is, in my time, is unprecedented. And I don't see how conceptually it really works. I understand what you're trying to do, and you've done a decent job of what you're doing, but the math of it is, again, it's bold. And I don't know how one can do that.
Again, it would set a precedent. I mean, it's obviously has to go to the ZBA at some point for their either approval or denial on it. But again, as George is saying, it could set a precedent in the village. I mean, the idea, the village redid its zoning a number of years ago to reduce coverage and FAR, specifically to prevent and to prohibit the idea of major homes being built in the village that add a character. And I think this is a situation here where we have to take a serious look at what's
Well,
being
understandable,
proposed.
and yes, the numbers are large, but I don't know if it will set a precedent for someone to come in and who's already at maxed out coverage and say, I'm gonna double my coverage now, because you let this other site do it. This exists. We're not
What you're
trying
doing is
to-
you're sort of trading the coverage of, you're saying, I'm gonna reduce it down by a couple nickels, and then I'm gonna build
Well,
this big bulky house.
I would
on it.
argue that
No,
it's
I'm just
not
trying-
nickels, but.
Well, no,
I
but
think you said 5%. Did you? I mean,
Okay.
that's,
I got you.
You're removing patios in a pond, and you're putting in a two-story structure. It's a big difference.
One story.
One story.
How high?
Lowest level. I looked at it, but now the second.
Yeah. It's, it's 12, it's maxed out, it's a 12-foot, so we don't have to count the FAR twice.
Okay.
Yeah.
And if I could, in response to the math, right, that's a common question we always get whenever there's a request for a large variance. So something that the ZBA deals with, the legal principle is that the percent deviation alone is not what the zoning board looks at, right? That's one factor in the 5-factor test. So you can't just, I don't say, the planning board, zoning boards can't just have sort of a knee-jerk reaction to, it's a large number, it's a large variance, therefore, no good. You have to look at the overall balancing test and how does it fit in with environmental impacts. There's a whole balancing test, including other impacts on the environment, how does it fit in with community character, et cetera. So I get it. It's a large.
Also the difficulty or the hardship.
The hardship. So it is a large variance request, but that in and of itself, that mathematical deviation alone doesn't warrant.
and we're not saying, I'm not saying that, I'm just talking about, in principle, coming in with something that is over on coverage, and then saying, oh, I'm gonna take out some patio and then build a house. And so then I have to look in terms of, okay, what is the scale of this thing in relationship to other sites? And there are math that does relate to this. That's why we have zoning. We have things like coverage. We have things like FAR. Those are numerical calculations that are done to try to curb the bulk in all these things. So what you're doing is kind of, and I get it, it's okay. I'm just saying that what you're proposing is ambitious.
And that's why I'm asking you to also calculate the FAR and the coverage of the surrounding properties to show what's the context within the neighborhood. Because that's one of the 5 items to be looked at in terms of a variance. As well as, the difficulty, the hardship. I mean, you said that the basement is broken up into smaller rooms. So, again, you're going to have to show what's the difficulty with using the space that's there as opposed to building 2,500 square feet of additional space.
Yeah, so it's a low ceiling also. It's all mechanical space and storage. It's really not functional as real usable space.
My advice is to come back with a really strong argument for why this is site-specific and why this site needs this size and this program.
And the site-specific, I would submit, is the existing nonconformity. That was of no fault to my client. It exists previously. And so, yes, we're trading, but we're also in that trade. It's an improvement to the overall aesthetics of the site, I would submit, and therefore it enhances the community character because we're taking out structures that are interfering with the water course that are not aesthetically pleasing, and as a result of this project, the entire aesthetic of the site would be enhanced.
Right, and a lot of people have come in saying that they bought something without understanding what it was that they were buying and stuff like that, but the laws are there. And this is not a necessarily new event, especially since I think you bought this recently, is that what I heard? Yeah. So these have been sort of on the books for a time. You obviously have been well-versed at it and have told your client what the conditions are, both now and what they were before, even before he bought them. So he bought it maybe not willingly understanding, knowing what it is, but it was part of that parcel. So we're all kind of responsible for doing our own homework for whatever property we own for these things. And a lot of people come in, and there are different places in the village where obviously, like especially in here in town, that they're all over exceeding the coverage and things like that. And we take a smart eye to what those things are in relationship to what they're trying to do. So it is a balancing act.
Understood.
Any other comments? No? Any comments from anyone in the public? No? Doug, Ed, do you have any additional comments? Mary, any comments? Okay. I think you've heard, and I think you can respond to the comments here in Doug's memo and also to the comments that we've heard from the board. See you next month.
Sounds good. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Have a motion to adjourn? Second? Second. Meeting's adjourned.